My name is Jason Magley, and I am an estimator for a painting contracting company. I'd never worked with a coach before, so I really had no idea what to experience or what to expect. Life was pretty average. I didn't really know what I was missing because I had never worked with a coach. But as soon as I started working with Victor, it really opened up my eyes to a lot of different thought processes and different ways to actually navigate through life that I didn't have the tools or the experience to put in place on my own. So, in the last 5 months or so, in working with Victor, I've noticed a massive shift, not only in my personal relationships, but my professional life as well. There's just so many great things that have happened. First off, professionally would be in my sales role, Victor is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to different ways to navigate the conversation and really understand individuals that you're working with. So, from starting with working with Victor, I have sold just over $300,000 in painting jobs, which is quite significant for me coming into this new role. And not really having any experience whatsoever. So far, I would say professionally, I've experienced some massive wins, not only in the way that I interact with my clients in my sales role with the estimating position that I currently hold, but also in the actual overall management and how I conduct myself as a person with my employees, as well as with the management of customers and their expectations, as well as different ways to ultimately communicate in a more effective manner. So professionally, those are some of the areas that Victor has definitely helped me out with. Personally, I would say in my relationship, I've been able to grow closer with my wife. I've been able to learn different aspects about myself that I wasn't super conscious of that were within my life itself. So bringing different awareness and using different tools that Victor has taught me to bring myself into sovereign awareness or just overall awareness in general has really been substantial for myself, my personal life, as well as my professional life. I had no idea what to expect when it came to doing the liberation session. It seemed daunting and a little bit overwhelming at first, just knowing that I was going to be tapping into some of my deep emotions that might be hiding things that I was scared to face, or that unconsciously I didn't want to face. So being able to have Victor there to lead me through the liberation session was honestly the best thing possible. He was extremely patient with me going through this, and just sat there with an open heart and an open mind as we worked through it together. And in doing that, it really allowed me to tap into some of my deep memories with the different emotions that I held, and moving those emotions and clearing those pieces out allowed me to open up my heart even bigger. And at the end of the day, made me feel like a lighter human. I'm able to process through different situations or experiences in a much more efficient manner now without having things added on to, like an emotional debt bucket. So being able to experience that and learn these tools to process through those emotions so that they don't stick and linger with me allowed me to have massive breakthroughs. And it was one of the most life-changing calls and experiences that I had with Victor. He's an absolute wealth of knowledge when it comes down to anything and everything. He seems to have an analogy or a quote or a reference to things that are directly applicable to me. So working with him, it's like working with a friend. It's very easygoing. There's no expectations or any pressure that comes into the calls. It's just open dialogue. It's open conversation. It's a safe place where you get to learn about yourself and ultimately build a relationship with an amazing coach that's there for you, that wants to see you win, and has a tool belt to help you out with anything that you're experiencing in life. If anybody's on the fence about working with Victor, all I really have to say is what's the worst that can happen? You just got to jump in and trust yourself, and have faith and confidence that you're building into something that ultimately is going to pay out tenfolds of what it could cost for the investment to work with Victor. At the end of the day, you're the most important person in the world, so you need to make sure you're taking care of yourself. And that starts with, doing coaching or meditations or whatever it might be to take care of your mind, body, and soul so that you can be the best version of yourself to show up every single day in life. So don't be scared. Go ahead and do it, jump right in, and you won't regret it at all. One thing to consider is, when people are skeptical about, working with a coach or any other individuals, I've heard from friends and family in the past that, they're concerned or worried that if they start working with a coach or a therapist and they start moving through, things that might be, traumatic events in the past, that ultimately would shape shift into a new challenge that they're going to carry through with them, moving into the future itself. But really, that's not the case. What it's doing is bringing awareness and teaching you how to face those challenges, those emotions, whatever it might be in the current moment, so that when other situations like those do arise, you have the tools and the ability to move through and process those, rather than putting that baggage on your shoulders and having to carry that. Having the ability and the knowledge to process those emotions is the biggest thing that's going to allow you to shift into a better version of yourself and show up in a more transformative way for the people in your life. So, the first step is processing through all those bad emotions that you're carrying with you, so that you don't have to carry those any longer. So the choice is yours, but you have to show up first. So in going through the liberation session, the calls themselves were, a couple hours long. It's not too much time that was invested there. And honestly, I was curious if those were going to be long enough calls for me to process through everything that I had. But at the end of the day, I found that we were so efficient with the calls, the way that the whole process and the actual tool itself works when it's being applied in the right manner, that allows you to go through and process the emotions. It's not something that's going to take, months or whatnot for you to ultimately process through it. I mean, maybe on the back end, you're going to have some stuff that's going to take a little bit longer than a couple hours. Yeah, sure. But, at the end of the day, it's something that you'll be able to process through fairly quickly, as long as you have the right guidance and the right individuals helping you move through that process itself. After going through the liberation session itself and processing through some of the major big emotions, I would say anger is one thing that comes to mind. And what I mean when I say anger is the ability to process through it and not have more anger stacked onto the backload that I already had on my shoulders with everything. So when I went through this session, some things that came to mind were from my childhood. And I now have a 3-year-old daughter, and she might do certain things that would have upset me in the past. But after going through the liberation session, I'm able to sit back and witness what she might be going through and look at things from a different perspective, which ultimately allowed me to have, more love and compassion for the different situations. Instead of getting angry about it, I took the time to understand what was actually happening and put myself in a different position to where I could fully interpret what was going on, so that I could process through my actual emotions and understand, okay, why is this triggering me? What is showing up here that is a memory or something that is, is bringing this back up to the surface. So moving through the liberation session gave me those tools and the ability to process through anger very specifically. And that has helped me in my personal life.